this message as you get this to your loved ones by clicking the share buttons, owning the series, sharing it with your friends, commenting below so we can hear from you. The most engaged people, the ones that get transformations, the ones that are applying and not sitting on the sidelines, just being spectators and critics, the ones that actually know that why we're here is for you, and it's a treasure trove, and experience it. And again, Lori, thank you for this vision, this amazing project that you've spearheaded.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I'm excited to move forward and share what we have for you.
Absolutely, let's do it.
So we will be covering so many topics in the series that are so relevant and important for women. Everything from hormones, thyroid, polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS, infertility, weight loss, endometriosis, cancer, pregnancy, all the way to children's health. One thing Jonathan and I always try to do is make sure we don't just give people information, but we help them to practically implement the solutions we're sharing. So we want to do all we can to help each of you as you grow in your knowledge of health and healing. I have a true passion and empathy for women who are suffering with many of the same things I've been through, and I'm so glad that you're here with us to be a part of this life-changing experience.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're in for a treat. Get ready, buckle your seatbelts, get your notepad and your pen out, get ready to take notes. You're gonna learn some things that will change your life forever.
We are basically looking at a lot of the struggles that women face, whether it's whether it's before, just in general, living your life as a woman, without children, even up until getting pregnant, right. Having the ability to have a child during pregnancy, and even menopause as well, right? We've also had, just in general, the ability to be able to function in life. And I mean, what do some of these conditions include?
From a clinical standpoint, here's what we see. We see autoimmune diseases, okay? We see inflammatory diseases, which in my opinion, those are one and the same, but there are some inflammatory diseases that aren't necessarily autoimmune, okay? We see hormonal issues. If you include dopamine and serotonin as hormones control 100% of your physiology. If you don't include serotonin and dopamine, your hormones dominate 80% of the metabolic processes in your body. That's a huge amount. That's 80%. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you include the brain chemistry in that, it's every function in our body is affected by our hormones. Yeah. That's in both men and women. Men move through those hormonal changes a lot faster. Okay, so our adjustments in the hormonal swing happen a lot quicker. Yeah. Women experience them over a longer curve. Okay, and so they're more pronounced because they're experienced longer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what can that look like on a daily basis? What are some of the conditions that women will face
you
for this?
You can have PMS, premenstrual syndrome, okay, where, building up to that time of the month can be really, painful. There could be mood swings, depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. And then, if there's ovarian cysts or if there's endometriosis, then that actual period can be very painful. I've had women that pass out, from the pain that they experience when they have their period every month. That's not uncommon today, which is very, very sad because it should be uncommon. Yeah. It's not normal.
Yeah.
No.
And it's become rampant now, in my experience as a woman and having people around me and being a health advocate, I'm seeing this more and more. And also the typical things that are talked about, like the inability to lose weight. Even as things as food cravings, we beat ourselves up for not having that control. We have all of these different things that we women go through on a daily basis, and then we have all of these responsibilities that we have to take, and then ultimately we beat ourselves up for not being able to adapt to normal things, or we start to look at things as normal when we're about to talk about that they're actually not normal, and there is a way to live without having these things.
Right. Just because certain symptoms are common doesn't mean they're normal. Okay. What's common is people are sick.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. It's the truth, but people are very, very sick. Here in the States, we have a very high percentage of our population that is chronically ill.
What you're about to witness right now is nothing short of amazing. You're about to discover women from all walks of life struggling with so many different types of conditions, diseases, chronic conditions that had left them debilitated. You're about to find out about it. But what you'll discover is that they use the protocols that we're going to be going through in this series. So you'll be seeing these women throughout this episode, throughout this entire episode series, and how they achieve these results. And as we go through and we're sharing with you all these healing protocols and tools, you're going to discover that these are the things that we've seen these proven, tested, and tried results with, like you're about to see right here and now. So just know that everything you watch in this series is backed up with solid case studies to prove that these things actually do work and are effective. Watch this, check it out, you'll be amazed.
I'm in an intensive care ward in a Portland hospital, having been diagnosed with fatal kidney disease. And in 1967, in the absence of dialysis and transplants, this is a death sentence.
I had severe scar tissue and blockage in my digestive system. I went to 2 different doctors to get 2 different opinions. Both of them said I'd have most of my intestines removed before the age of 40.
And so on a good day, I could make it out around with my wheelchair or walker or cane. And on a bad day, I didn't make it out of bed, and I didn't want to. I was in so much pain, a lot of times I didn't want to move or breathe, despite the fact that I'm laying there on morphine and a handful of medications, and that was my life.
Testing. No doctor could find anything on me until I demanded to get, I brought my ultrasounds from Mexico, and that's what got their attention. I said, why are they detecting this tumor, but you guys are telling me that there's nothing wrong with me? Then finally they referred me to an endocrinologist, and that was their solution, was to remove my thyroid. By taking out my thyroid is not the answer. The thyroid just takes over so much of your body. And I wasn't being the mom to my 4-year-old that I wanted to be. I wasn't being the wife, to my husband that I wanted to be. And I just knew that there was a better way.
I was just sprawled on the floor, crying, because I was sick. Here I am without a career, without good health, and just sitting at home at this age, after achieving so much in my life, but not able to accomplish anything. It went from 1 to 2 defecations a day. I had to run to the bathroom at least 10 to 15 times every single day. And there were days where it was just blood instead of having any stool in it. There was so much pain, abdominal pain with it. There was a lot of cramping with it. I was losing blood, so I became anemic. I became fatigued now. I was not absorbing any food that I was eating right, so I was malnourished.
And my story started when I was 8 years old. My mother noticed I didn't have as much energy as my siblings. I'm 69 now. I've been my whole life just dragging.
We sent me to a clinic to have an MRI done. You have multiple sclerosis. I sat in my car one day and I said, I don't want to live. And I thought, what can I do? I can take my life away, because the pain was so severe.
And one morning I woke up and the soles of my feet were all tingling. You know that feeling that you get when it's all pins and needles, like when you've slept on a limb too long and then the blood flows back? Only this morning the blood didn't flow back to my feet. I saw a neurologist who did a very cursory exam. She had me walk across the floor heel toe. She had me touch my finger to my nose, tested my reflexes, and pronounced, "I'm 99% certain you have multiple sclerosis, MS. And if I'm right, there's nothing you can do except take medication, and you're going to want to prepare for your life in a wheelchair."
So a little over a year ago, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and it was a devastating diagnosis. And here's the thing, I probably had Hashimoto's thyroiditis for a couple of years prior to getting diagnosed. We just couldn't see it. And when we were running labs, everything was just coming back normal.
Back in 1998, well, in 88, I had Guillain-Barré. I was paralyzed, I was on life support. Out of that, I got narcolepsy, which I didn't know. And about 10 years later, after going through much distress with the doctors, putting me on anti-anxiety medicines, things like that, because they thought I was going to get paralyzed again, they diagnosed me with narcolepsy, cataplexy, myasthenia gravis, and my thyroid was failing. And there were so many things going wrong with my body. I got married, and my husband had a serious psoriatic arthritis outbreak.
Yeah, so when I was 20, 2 months into my second pregnancy, I developed this horrifying digestive disease that just completely knocked me out, just took over. And at the very end of the pregnancy, I developed toxemia. I had a brain aneurysm 24 hours after the birth of my daughter. I was in a coma for a while, and I was relearning everything, how to move again.
My numbers not only stabilized, but as the weeks went by, they were improving and improving. The nephrologist, the specialist, all the many doctors, I think there were 6 people in that meeting, and they were passing my results around and scratching their heads saying, "We have no science for why that one kidney that we literally could see with it shriveled up after nephritis, why that one kidney is functioning as a perfectly functioning kidney. We'd have no science for that. We don't know how long this will last. We're just going to write medical anomaly on your chart. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it."
How old are you now?
I'm 40.
This is incredible.
I'm 40.
You're the exact age that she said. We're right here in this moment.
Mm-hmm, I know. Once I got over that hump, I started to feel better. I started to have more energy. I started to feel brighter. My hair started to get shiny again. My nails started growing again.
And so I continued to research day and night. And I began to figure out things that I could do with my mind that started to release my pain. And so I kept going and kept going. And my body began to heal.
Went back today to our doctor here, who is an ultrasound doctor and radiologist, and he's like, "It's gone."
2 years later, I went and repeated my colonoscopy, and it was clean. There was no inflammation, there was no ulcer, there was nothing. And my physician was like, "Are you sure you were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis?" And I'm like, "Yes, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis." Pull up my previous record, and you can see it's ulcers in my rectum. And he's like, "It's not Crohn's." I said, "No, it wasn't Crohn's, it was ulcerative colitis." And he's like, "How did you do this?"
I had fibromyalgia, Sjogren's, chronic fatigue, Hashimoto's, and then, like I say, this bad brain. It's gone.
The more the healing started taking place, and the more healing that took place, this rose and this was lifted. There was joy restored not only in my mind, but in my heart.
When I went back to the neurologist last year and I said, "It's time for a second MRI, let's do an after MRI and see how things go," he said, "I think it's a good idea." So I went and got tested. And when I came back the next week, he put the slides side by side and he had me sit down next to him. And he showed me the first set of slides. And I had Dawson's finger, which is a pattern of lesions on your brain. And he showed me where all the plaques were, which is the white lesions on the brain. And he showed me the new MRI results, and he showed me how the lesions had faded or had disappeared. And he looked at me and he said, "Palmer, this couldn't be a better story."
And over the course of 9 months, I was able to get the Hashimoto's into remission and get my thyroid levels back to normal.
You mentioned here that 90% of his psoriasis has gone. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I would say 90% of it's gone.
And how long has it been?
A month.
Wow.
Yeah. This is just amazing. I went down to get my mail. We have to go to a place to get our mail. And one of the ladies in my community saw me there and she said, what are you doing? Because I've lost 10 pounds in the last week, in 2 weeks. And as I was driving up to get my mail, I was thinking, I feel so strong. I mean, I was gripping the steering wheel like you're doing those hand weights. I was gripping it and feeling like I've got strength in my hands, my legs. And I was just like bouncing out of the mail room. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And so I've convinced her she's got to do this.
Within a week, I was like, bam, okay, I guess I'm 100%. Like, I just felt like that. It feels like the clouds have parted and the sun just came out and like there's angels singing. Like, honestly, that is the feeling I feel like right in here. And it's empowering. It's really empowering to know that I don't have to worry anymore. I feel like I'm 20 again and I have a chance.
Hi guys, I'm Lori Otto and I'm here with my husband, Jonathan Otto.
Hey guys.
He's gonna be on this journey with us and I'm so excited and happy to have him here because he has been such a driver in the Women's Health Secrets. He's an amazing investigative journalist who has really brought out the amazing content from our experts as we've been on this journey interviewing them. And so we're excited to have him here.
Lori and I are both so thankful that you're here, and we want to give you some key tools right now as you're going through this journey. So as you're watching the episodes, you're going to discover the amazing insights and little known facts and health protocols.
And to improve our health, energy, and beauty as women. Plus the natural remedies we can use to heal our bodies without side effects. This project came to life after I realized, and I was going through my own health journeys, that we don't have enough reliable information about how to improve women's health. As women, we're naturally nurturing and caring beings, which means that most of the time we take care of everybody else's needs and we put ourselves last after our spouse, children, family, and friends. And as much as being a nurturer is a gift we bring to the world, we must not forget to take care of ourselves. And actually, as women, we should be very clear on who is your number one priority in life. And I believe after God, that person is you. I used to think that taking care of yourself first is selfish, but I changed my mind completely once I struggled with debilitating chronic health conditions for so many years. Think about it. If you're not healthy, happy, energetic, and vibrant, then how can you be present emotionally and physically to your family and children? If you're not balanced, then your loved ones won't get the best you have to offer either. When you're sick or unbalanced, either physically or emotionally, you lose so many happy moments, goals, hopes, dreams, and chances to live a fulfilling life, simply because you're stuck with a disease with often painful symptoms, a sense of hopelessness, lack of energy, and endless doctor's visits. This is why Women's Health Secrets is an invitation to take a step back and start taking a hard look at your health, where you are right now versus where you would like to be in a couple of weeks, months, and even years.
You see, no matter what disease or symptoms you're struggling with, your body is designed to heal itself once it has the right tools. And I know that because of Lori's experience and because of my own healing journey and what you're about to discover in this episode.
I found a way to take my health and my power back after struggling for many years with difficult health challenges. This episode and the following 8 episodes are just the tip of the iceberg to get you moving. You can find all the healing protocols that are especially designed for women and all the expert advice on the most pressing women's health issues inside the Women's Health Secrets packages.
Click below to see what's inside the silver, gold, and platinum packages and to make sure you choose your favorite option by the end of the free episode airing to take advantage of discounts of up to 67%. So before continuing, I suggest you take a moment, pause this video, and check out what's inside each package right now. So to give you a description of what's in the package and what comes in the mail with the platinum package, Laura and I have got the program here. So there you have the DVDs of all 10 episodes, plus some additional bonuses of the fitness and cooking demonstrations. The complete episode transcripts. So this accompanies all the videos of episode 1 through 10, so you can read along and get all the value from there. You also have the 67 key takeaways. So this is part of the core package, which is the most powerful distilled protocols and advice from the experts inside of the series. And then also an important free gift that you get when you take action today is a 7-module healing protocol and all the attached free gifts that we're about to show you. The 7-module healing protocol is a step-by-step guide to recovering your health, and it's beautifully illustrated in color, graphics, with some amazing additional tools inside of here. And just to give you an understanding of what's in this amazing package, you can see them right here. Lori, do you want to list them out for everyone?
Yes, sure. So this is the episode guide that you can, as you're watching along, let this guide you and take notes or whatever you want to do with that. And then you have the recipes book, Healthy Rejuvenating Meals that will help you along your healing journey. Then you get the 7 urgent health challenges facing women. Here's the book that's talking about inflammation. You're not fat, you're inflamed, and the solutions for that. You also get 15 days to brighter skin. How many of us want to have brighter, healthy, glowing skin and healing it from the inside? And finally, Women's Guide to Solving Depression and Anxiety, which is also something that is amazing information of how to heal within.
There you have this book. And so then all of these books come inside of the healing protocol, all in color. And this all together are a part of all the free gift bonuses that you get, valued at $2,755, and you get it free when taking action today along with the core package, which already has a 67% off discount. So we're really glad to be sharing that with you. And one other thing that we didn't mention is the full-length transcripts. This is a visual representation of it, but you get digital access online to the videos and transcripts of all the full-length interviews from all the experts of this series. So we're so glad to offer this to you during this free screening. You can take advantage by simply clicking the button or the banner just below this video right here today to make sure you don't miss out on this amazing opportunity and special offer.
So actually, a lot of mine is like women's health issues. I've had them pretty much my whole life, which is weird. So I just had chronic pain, just kind of like burning pains, that just kind of came up, and I had them for like about 2 years before I even kind of found Dr. B. So that was pretty much what was going on before that, and just trying to figure out problems. But I've actually been to multiple doctors, just regular doctors, and gotten a lot of tests and lab tests done and things like that. And nobody could ever really tell me what was wrong with me. So, you know, and it's just nothing that I could talk to anybody about, really. You know, nobody understands, or they think that you're crazy, or, you know, because tests are telling them nothing's wrong. So, so this is actually the first time I've actually gotten validation that, you know, maybe something really isn't right, and there's actually an action plan that I can actually do something instead of feeling frustrated and kind of alone in the whole situation. So
what did that validation feel like for you?
Pretty amazing. I think Dr. B was laughing at me because I was just like, oh my God, like when I got my test back, I was just so excited because I was like, finally somebody tells me like it's real, I'm not crazy. So because I think a lot of women go through that, and you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about things that are embarrassing or private, but I feel like that's something that we need to talk about.
There's no such thing as women's health in medicine. This might be the most important thing that women need to understand, is that medical doctors are not trained in how to treat women compared to men differently, all right? And it's hard to conceptualize, but they're not. Women's health is in a sense, a public health discussion of these conditions are, you know, specific to women. But what about pain? What about depression? What about gut disorders? What about autoimmunity? What about the thousands and thousands of different conditions that men and women both experience? There is no gender-specific treatment protocol, which makes no sense. Because yes, I know all of us are biochemically unique, right? My chemistry is different than your chemistry. But as a whole, because I'm a man, I have a completely different hormonal structure, genetic structure, and there are commonalities that I have with every other man, that you have with every other woman. So first of all, realize that our doctors are woefully prepared to treat women as women. And I think that's critical to understand and to let sink in, because we need to ask our doctor, okay, I came in with some sniffles, I came into your office with a sore throat, and I don't feel good. Why are you giving me the same antibiotic that you gave to the gentleman who's 15 years older than me for the same conditions? Doesn't he have a different hormonal structure? He doesn't deal with a monthly cycle. He's not nursing. He's not pregnant. He's not all this. And so when you start to think about this, we need to question and we need to demand customized, gender-specific at the very least. And so we also need to recognize that we need to be very conscious of our body. And women, out of all, you're very intuitive. Like, I believe it's a gift from God. And so if something doesn't seem right to you, even intuitively, don't do it. Question. If you don't have a doctor who she or he is willing to work with you on that intuitive level, like, I just don't feel right about this.
In general, the biggest thing you need to know about hormones is that typically when we see hormone problem, this is going to be related to some type of environmental toxicity issue. The reason is because there's a lot of chemical in our environment that are endocrine disrupting chemicals. Okay, as a class, they're called EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals. And these chemicals have the ability to disrupt hormones, either by mimicking our own body hormone, thereby amplifying their response, or diminishing the hormone's action, or interfere with hormone receptor function. So when you have chemical exposure, it's not just chemical or it's toxic and it causes you, liver problem. It has wide-ranging downstream effect, not the least of which is hormones. So many times when I see female with hormone imbalance, typically we're looking at chemicals as one of the root cause. Now, certainly there could be other causes as well besides just chemical, but chemical is a very, very common one. In fact, some researchers say that American female swim in a sea of estrogen. That's just how many, it's just a testament to how many chemicals out there that have estrogen mimicking effect, and therefore leading to estrogen dominance, which is a scenario where you have way too much estrogen, more than progesterone, and much of this estrogen is because of environmental chemical that have estrogen mimicking effect. So this is one cause of why females will get things like PCOS, fibroids, cysts, endometriosis, heavy bleeding. See, these are all conditions due to cell proliferation, meaning estrogen is a hormone that stimulates the proliferation of reproductive areas in female. So specifically cervix, uterus, breast. So then when you have way too much estrogen due to environmental chemical that mimic estrogen, you have estrogen dominance, it's going to stimulate the growth of breast tissue. So you might get cystic breast. It's going to stimulate the growth of endometrial tissue. So you get thick endometrial lining, which is shed as menstrual blood. So you get heavy bleeding. And then it may take you 2 or 3 cycles just to get rid of the old lining, the blood. So then you see clots. And then you get these endometrial tissue that grow outside the uterus, and that's endometriosis. And then you might also get fibroids and cysts on the ovary. So again, much of this problem is due to too much environmental toxicity exposure. So again, that makes detox really important. So what I really think is really great with what Jonathan has come up with is some of the tools that he has.
PMS, premenstrual syndrome, no one knew what it was up until 1953. And that's when the diagnosis came out. Up until then, they were just like, we don't know, something's up with women. They literally, 300-400 years ago, they thought it was evil spirits affecting women. They had no idea. Why is she going through this? Yeah. Why? Why during the menses are they going through mood swings and pain and nausea? And there was a stigma that, you just need to deal with this. You need to be, You got to take care of this yourself and just suck it up and be a good wife and not recognize that this, there wasn't a syndrome around it. It was suppressed. It was a suppressed symptom, and women weren't able to be free, weren't able to really experience and essentially demand the help, because PMS is a very normal thing to certain levels, but without having a diagnosis behind it, without having a medical rationale, without having a treatment protocol, women have just kind of just shoved it under the radar. And now it's like, well, you have bad PMS, get on the pill. Well, since when did that become? Like, let's suppress your estrogen and let's completely get you off of hormone or your hormonal balance. And that's what the worst thing any woman can do. There's nothing worse than the pill. It should be outlawed. It is one of the worst mechanisms for prophylactic dysmenorrhea and menstrual syndrome problems that no woman should be on, because there's natural remedies. And what's one that comes up to mind? Clary sage. What's another one that comes up? The ancestors, your grandmothers have used clary sage and vitex and geranium and all these herbs and making salves, and now we have the essential oil, which is a more potent version of it, for centuries to help with these symptoms. Not a pill. And not to suppress it, not to be like, you just do what you got to do, right? And so PMS should not be debilitating for women. If it is, there's a reason. Let's come to the root cause of that. Let's try to fix it. But ultimately, we have to recognize, we just understand women are unique, they're beautiful, but their bodies are extremely complicated and much more complicated than men.
Yeah. Tell me why the pill is bad.
Because it's an unnatural suppression of hormones. Just simply put, that's why thyroxine, that's why thyroid medications are bad. And what it does, it gives your body, it cripples your body to produce the natural hormones as it should. It's hacking into the system. It's not good. It's like drinking too much coffee is going to hinder your body, because your body isn't going to produce the natural energy that it should. Yeah, we can talk about all day long coffee about being a diuretic or too acidic. No, your body should be producing natural energy. And if you're overdosing on caffeine, the body's like, okay, I don't need to do this anymore. Same thing with the pill. It's saying, no, don't worry about it. The drug is going to take care of the hormones. And so the body doesn't work the way that it should.
In this crazy world we live in, we're constantly running from place to place, from task to task. Stress builds up, and often we feel that the only way to get through is to cut back on our sleep. Many Americans also deal with insomnia caused by stress, medication, depression, anxiety, and other factors. This is why it seems we are seeing more and more ads for sleep aids. We're loading up on caffeine and then needing another medication to bring us back down. We're taxing our bodies in ways that are beyond their capacity. And while you may seem fine now, continuing in this pattern can be building up damage in your system that will lead to a point where a triggering event can induce a disease that you may have to fight for the rest of your life. That's why making sure your body gets sleep and rest is so essential.
We have a lot of fibroids. We have people who complain about hot flashes, sexual health, libido issues. So in general, when we're talking about hormone, the first thing we have to think about hormone is that the hormones are the end product, okay? The hormones are just the end product made by factories, in this case, ovary, right? So the factory takes order from someplace else, which is usually the brain. So in your brain, you have the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland that makes the stimulating hormone and the releasing hormone to then affect the end organ, which is the ovary. So when I see someone with hormone issue, I'm always asking two questions. One, where it starts, is there a problem there? Hypothalamus, pituitary output. And I'll talk about what are some of the things I can throw that off. Second is the metabolism of. Now in medical terms, the metabolism of something is describing how something is broken down. So when we talk about the metabolism of hormone, we're talking about how is hormone broken down. So your body makes a hormone, but you have to metabolize it or get rid of it. You can also call it detoxing it, right? So you always have to look in terms of the signal from the brain, and on the other end, no pun intended, the elimination of that hormone. But in Western medicine, and most people, they're kind of stuck in between where the hormone is made, the ovary. We're concerned about the hormone levels, and just, instead of thinking about what's the master control up in the brain and what is the elimination of that hormone. So for women with any kind of hormone issue, number one thing we got to think about is detoxification and we got to think about brain function. So as far as brain, hypothalamus, pituitary gland, these are two master hormone glands in the brain that regulate the release of these hormones, be it thyroid hormone, adrenal hormone, or your sexual hormones. So your hypothalamus, pituitary gland are really their brain tissues. They're brain tissues that happen to make hormones. So really your hormones are controlled by brain. Now, how does that influence that? Your brain basically is a big antenna that basically detects what's going on in your environment through sights, sound, smell, taste, touch. So your brain is constantly taking in information and make a decision whether you should fire off a fight or flight response or a heal and repair. So if you're constantly under stress, whether it's physical stress, emotional stress, or chemical stress from toxins and chemicals from food or inflammation, then what happens is your brain's going to send a lot of these signals to the hypothalamus pituitary to make hormone in such a way that's going to help you survive some kind of stress. So remember, when you're in survival mode, reproduction is not a main priority, right? If a tiger is chasing you, it's not very important to make a baby at that moment in time. It's more important that you get away from the tiger. So libido and sexual functions can be compromised when you're in a lot of stress. And remember, when I say stress, it's not just mental stress, it's also physical and chemical stress as well. So that's how stress and inflammation can impact brain function and therefore impact the signal from brain to the ovary and impact hormone function that way. So that's number one, we have to look at that. So a lot of times it's really about, asking really good questions, asking yourself, are you stressed? Are you the type of person that take care of everybody else but yourself? Do you put yourself as a priority? Are you taking on too much? Are you in a bad situation, a job that's too stressful, too demanding? You have to make sometimes tough choices to reprioritize your life so that you put your health first. So that's from the brain aspect.
One thing many people don't realize is the impact of our emotional state on our health. It's just now, within the last century, that we're really just starting to discover and understand how profoundly our mental state can affect our health. As we've interviewed hundreds of doctors, we've continued to hear the same idea, that those patients who have a positive worldview and a healthy, secure emotional state do much better in treatment. This has prompted scientists to research this very concept, and study after study continues to confirm the effect the mind can have on healing and illness. In fact, science is also showing that those who experience childhood trauma may find themselves dealing with negative health outcomes later in life. With all this in mind, it's essential that we learn more about managing stress and living in a healthy emotional state.
So ACEs are adverse childhood experiences, and the ACEs study started in the mid-1990s, and what the researchers were looking at is the correlation of emotional trauma in childhood and illness onset in adulthood. And really the study was phenomenal. It's one of the most underexposed studies done in medicine. And it really demonstrates that emotional trauma is one of the most underexposed epidemics that is underlying and is one of the root causes of chronic illness. So originally the study was done by the CDC in Kaiser Permanente, and they were looking at 17,500 adults. And the results were pretty staggering and stunning, and even the researchers were amazed by the results. So, for example, if you had a high level of ACEs, these adverse childhood events, you had an increased risk of 7 out of the top 10 causes of death. And 67% of all adults said they had had an adverse childhood event. And when we talk about ACEs, exactly what are we talking about? What are they? So the researchers defined 10 different types of ACEs, and they just chose things that they'd seen within the research and that were commonly understood as emotional trauma. So it's things like physical and emotional neglect, physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. It was things like incarceration of a family member, parents separating or divorce, mental illness in the family, substance abuse, things like that. So they came up with 10. And then the results showed that, for example, if you had 6 of those, you had a 20-year reduction in lifespan. If you had just 4 of those types of ACEs, you had over 400% increased risk of things like depression, Alzheimer's, mental illnesses. If you had just 2 ACEs, you had up to 100% increased risk of autoimmune diseases. So, and if you had a large number, like over 8 of ACEs, you had 3 times the risk of lung cancer and 3.5 times the risk of heart disease. And really what was also very interesting, a personal interest for me, is that people with moderate levels of ACEs have a 6-fold increased risk of illnesses like chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and that was my background. So, ACEs are hugely important in illness onset in adulthood, and it's vastly missed in sort of natural medicine as well as the conventional medical approaches. So the researchers found that 67% of adults reported that they'd had at least one ACE, and 80% of those said that they had more than one ACE. But that was actually an underestimate. So the researchers actually missed off asking questions like, had the person been a victim of bullying, or had they been a victim of homophobia? Had the person had a traumatic childbirth, for example? So there are many items that they missed off, and the researchers said it wasn't an exhaustive list. So the chances are the number of people who've had ACEs is much higher.
As we go through this series, we'll learn how many things can affect and alter our health. We all have some concept that what we eat affects our health in one way or another. But do we realize how profoundly it affects our bodies when we're fueling them with the wrong fuel? Our bodies try to adapt to the new conditions, but over time, when they aren't getting the nutrients and minerals they need, they begin to break down and we suffer the effects. For many of us, it's easy to make the right choice when the consequences are immediate. But when we don't see those consequences for years, we can often deceive ourselves into believing that we're not actually doing any real harm to our bodies. On top of this, the food industry has played a part in creating foods that are incredibly addictive and difficult to quit eating. By loading up processed foods with taste enhancers and addictive chemicals, then adding manipulative and dishonest advertising to that mix, they create an environment that often makes it feel impossible for us to make a true change. But when we can step back from these forcefully imposed thought processes and see a bird's eye view of the situation, we can finally realize we have the ability to take control of our own life and our own choices, and we don't have to be subject to the manipulation of this industry.
Then it goes that food can be our biggest healing source. So if we can actually eat good food, then we can help at least bring some sort of balance to our hormones if they're out of whack. And if they're in a good place, you can actually expand or extend your fertility for longer, so that you could potentially have a baby later and be in choice about that. Just a quick one. This is the most recent. She's a 44-year-old woman. She came to me at 42 with lots of hormonal imbalances, fibroids, cysts, 22-day cycles. Her cycles had been short almost her whole life. And out of those 22 days, she bled for about 10. So she's always bleeding, right? And in a chronic deficiency state. Super anemic. She had way too many issues, and she was like, I don't even want to try for a baby right now because I need some help. I need to figure out what's happening with my health
and that's
before.
Amazing that she came to you at the age that she came to, because what does society tell us?
Right. Most of the time, women are being told that at 35 your fertility massively drops. Hopefully you froze your eggs before then, and if you didn't, you're screwed, essentially. And when she came in, she's one of my dear friends, and she was pretty much I'm not sure if this can work for me, but I really want to try. I'm going to be a solo mom. So she's off the bat, she's got a sperm donor. And she was like, I want to do everything that I can possibly do, because when I get into IVF, I only have money for one cycle. And I was like, wow, no pressure. And the statistics on IVF are what most people don't realize is that when a clinic publishes their success rate, it's based on 6 consecutive cycles of IVF. Not 1, 6. So if a clinic says, oh, we have a 25% success rate, that means the average number of women in their clinic go through 6 cycles before they're able to conceive. And their rates are still 25%. It's in vitro fertilization, and it's essentially they give your body a bunch of hormones, or if you're doing natural IVF, it's a natural cycle and they just take eggs when you're normally ovulating. But essentially the idea is to gather the eggs out of your body, potentially test them, and we can talk about the details of that, and then merge it with the sperm outside in a petri dish and then insert it back in and hope that it implants.
Okay.
So there's a couple of pieces of that. One is the implantation, which often doesn't happen easily. So a lot of women go through cycle after cycle, and they may even be getting good eggs, they may be getting good embryos, and they're like, why isn't it working? It keeps not sticking.
Yeah.
And they don't have, like, Western medicine doesn't really have an answer for that. And a lot of implantation issues have to do with inflammation of the uterus. So who's looking at the uterus?
Yeah.
Almost nobody.
Yes. And
everything is about the egg and the sperm.
Right. But
We've
they're not looking
forgotten
as to why they're not, it's not sticking.
why isn't it sticking? And this is the
can't
baby's
conceive in the
home
first place. Yes.
for 9 months,
Yeah.
right? So you want to make sure that home is in a really good place before you even get pregnant. So, so that's the process of the IVF. And with a lot of women older in age, they'll need to go through multiple retrievals where they're collecting the eggs with hormones, collecting eggs out of your body, because on average, a 42 to 44-year-old woman is going to get hopefully 5 eggs per cycle.
Wow.
So they'll gather a lot of these eggs, and then they'll test which ones are good and then decide when to implant it back. So for this woman that is in my office, we worked with her for almost 1.5 years, and her cycles went to, I think, 26 or 27 days, which is a lot better.
Yeah.
Her periods went down to 6 days, which is still a lot, but
Hey.
way better than 10.
Way better, yeah.
And she ended up needing to have fibroid surgery. Her fibroid shrunk, but not enough. So we were like, okay, we got to do the integrative approach here.
Yes.
But they got 23 eggs from her on the first retrieval.
Wow.
Remember I said the average is 5.
5, yeah.
They got 23.
Yeah.
19 of them fertilized, which is like, is impossible for an average 25-year-old.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
not that many eggs are going to fertilize.
amazing.
So her success rate was way higher than they would expect for anyone her age.
Yeah.
This is her first cycle. She's now, I think, 22 or 24 weeks pregnant. So she's well past her first trimester.
Yeah.
And she's doing amazing.
That's so good. And I'm sure she feels better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she did all of those things that she had before just went away?
Almost all of it has resolved.
Yeah.
There's still a component of her thyroid that we're continuing to work with her on.
Yeah.
Part of it is pregnancy will potentially cause your thyroid to go out of whack. So we did a lot of work on her thyroid, and then she got pregnant, and then we're back into the managing of her thyroid hormones. But overall, she feels much better.
Yeah, it's a good situation to be in, and she knows where to go and what tools to use. And that's the whole point, right?
Yes.
As we're discussing many of the factors that are triggering disease for women all over the country and even across the world, there's one thing that affects every person on this planet, but is rarely, if ever, talked about within the Western medical industry. That is the profoundly detrimental effect of the buildup of toxic heavy metals within our bodies. We often hear about lead or mercury poisoning, but so few people realize how widespread mercury poison is, or that there are many other toxic chemicals in our environment that have been damaging our health.
We sometimes hear about using green products and taking care of the environment and so forth. But what about heavy metals building up in our bodies and triggering diseases? there's been an incredible boom in autoimmune disease in the last 50 to 70 years, and we've exposed ourselves to more and more chemicals or toxins on a daily basis and have accumulated these within our systems. Our bodies are breaking down much faster. Chronic illness onset used to come in later in life, but now teenagers and young adults are dealing with more and more chronic illnesses. But the exciting thing about this is that it can be reversed. We can detox our bodies from these heavy metals and chemical toxins. We can boost our cleansing and elimination systems and help our body to excrete these substances in a much more effective way. Amazingly, diseases have been and are able to be reversed by taking these incredible steps. There are solutions that are not being talked about, and we want to share with you many of these solutions here in this docu-series. We want to give you the knowledge and power to change your life.
Again, these are tools of the trade. These are the things that you can use. So, for example, he has the deliberate kidney cleanse and the inflammation detox, the toxin cleanse and parasite cleanse. These are tools that you can use to help you with that aspect of it. That's why when we say, hey, we really feel detox is really important part of the protocol and something that we should be doing on a regular basis, that's the reason. And just because attributing to how much environmental toxins are out there and how that really affect women that way. So that's one aspect of it. The other side of hormones is that many females have hormone problem because of, remember that prioritization that I talk about, this roadmap you must navigate? If you have blood sugar imbalance, it's going to throw off your hormone. One of the pathway that this can cause is that one of the detox pathways for hormone is called glucuronidation. Now, glucuronidation is a phase 2 liver detox pathway, and glucuronidation is heavily depends on proper blood sugar function for that pathway to run. So when you have blood sugar dysfunction, you're basically going to impair that glucuronidation pathway and make it very difficult for you to eliminate hormones such as estrogen. Then you develop estrogen dominance, and then all the symptoms associated with that, heavy bleeding, menstrual cramps, stuff like that. So one of the supplements that people might take to help with glucuronidation is called calcium D-glucarate. This is a supplement that you can buy over the counter or online that can help with that particular pathway. But remember, if we were to trace it back, why do you even have glucuronidation pathway impairment? Blood sugar problem. So you can take calcium D-glucarate to help facilitate glucuronidation. This is only for those of you who might have concerns about estrogen dominance. We can actually do tests to test beta-glucuronidase from your stool or from the blood and be able to assess that, that area is functioning properly. But again, if we were to address the root cause of that, many times it's blood sugar dysfunction. So how do you address blood sugar dysfunction? Cut out sugar, limit sugar intake, limit carbohydrate intake, focus on vegetables, fibers from vegetables, a lot of healthy fat, good amount of protein. But really focus on the vegetable and the healthy fat. That's where it's at. So that's how you can manage blood sugar or support that. Okay, so that's one pathway. The other reason why a lot of women have problems, again, it's related to blood sugar, is that when you have high blood sugar, this leads to insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is a condition when you have way too much insulin, so therefore the insulin doesn't work. And so all that sugar cannot be uptaken by the cell, so the sugar turns into fat cells, so it causes weight gain, especially belly fat. And you get fatigue, you get energy issues, you get sweet cravings, all the stuff associated with blood sugar issue. And insulin resistance is the number one cause of PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, which turns out to be the number one cause of infertility in the United States. So again, number one cause of infertility is due to PCOS, and the number one cause of PCOS is due to insulin resistance or blood sugar problem. So again, just tells you how many people have blood sugar dysfunction. So again, mind your blood sugar by eating appropriately.
Yeah.
That can go a long way to helping you with your hormones.
Another trigger that few people are even aware of or would be even willing to consider most of the time is parasites. Many Americans believe that because we're in a developed country, we have eradicated parasites from our food sources and our environment. This is completely false. While we do work hard to keep a clean food supply, there are certain foods that are very prone to parasites, and there is very little that can be done to truly eradicate them. On top of that, we're exposed to parasites from our pets and other sources as well. One of the other major factors for parasitic exposure is the fact that we have consumed unwittingly or intentionally genetically modified foods, and this has broken down the gut microbiome, which is our major defense against parasites. That's one of the major reasons we see such an outbreak in the Western world today. Parasites can wreak havoc on our bodies. We've seen countless people who have made amazing strides towards living a healthy lifestyle. They've changed their diet, detoxed from heavy metals, taken probiotics, taken supplements that provide extra nutrients, taken herbs, yet nothing seems to be working. Then they do a parasite cleanse and suddenly their symptoms are just gone. It's pretty amazing, right? Parasites keep our elimination systems from working properly. They stop it. They stop the regular process of detox and the regular process of even digestion. Their waste also dumps toxins into our bodies that are often getting absorbed back into our system and creating a toxic and unhealthy environment within our bodies.
Until we address this elephant in the room, we can't truly encompass all of the triggers that may be affecting our body. So we've talked about some of the triggers. Now let's discuss these diseases in more detail. What are some of the diseases out there that are affecting women's health? And can they be remedied? Is there hope for women who've been struggling with these symptoms for years? What about women who have been struggling to get pregnant and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars for in vitro fertilization, IVF? Is there hope in these cases? Let's delve more into these insights from experts who've seen patients make a total life transformation and completely reverse their symptoms, as well as women who thought there was no hope, suddenly becoming pregnant after creating a healthy environment within their bodies.
Endometriosis, probably the most debilitating symptom I've seen in women with endometriosis is just severe pain. Just terrible, terrible pain and bleeding around that time of the month. It's agonizing. And I mean, to the point of hospitalization, I've seen really, really bad cases. In this, the standard treatment would be to put them on birth control. But again, that treats what? Okay, that minimizes the symptoms, the pain settles down a little bit. They don't have quite as severe periods because the whole process is being suppressed, right? But we go back to why. Why is endometriosis happening? Okay, because endometriosis is initiated by an estrogen dominant state. Okay, so if a woman's estrogen dominant, the stage is set for her to have endometriosis. Okay, for that whole process. Another thing is, if a woman's estrogen dominant, that means her thyroid's being suppressed. She may have good numbers, but she could still, her lab work might look fine, but she may have all the symptoms of
thyroid
problems,
what are some?
Fatigue, cold hands and feet, dry skin, cracking heels. Okay, the dry cracking of the heel, the back of the foot. Okay,
hair loss,
loss, loss of the eyebrows. Let's see here. Swelling in the neck area.
Okay.
Actually,
sometimes even
second
pain,
chin,
right?
Even pain in the
second
neck.
chin too.
Yeah. Well, you look at the lab work, and it'll come back perfectly normal. Okay, but they have all these symptoms, and they're told it's all in their head. But what happens is estrogen and thyroid compete. Okay, so if thyroid goes way up high, it suppresses estrogen way down low.
Okay.
If estrogen goes way up high, it suppresses. Okay, now this goes back to our environment. Here's an issue. We have a lot of...
Why? We're going to the
Exactly.
why.
We're talking about why. We have a lot of chemicals in our environment that are estrogen mimicking chemicals. There's even heavy metals that are estrogen mimicking. Okay? Like mercury.
Wow.
Which a lot of people have mercury in their mouth. Okay. Mercury is a very estrogen mimicking chemical.
How can you solve that?
There's
going to the dentist and
you have to have the metal removed.
Okay.
And you get that done. You also have to then help your body eliminate the mercury that is accumulated.
Yeah.
You know, that's a real major issue. Cadmium. Cadmium's another metal that's in our environment. Typically, you get exposed from electronics, from batteries, and things like that. I mean, these all will have some cadmium in them. Not just electronics, I'm talking like appliances. You know, if you have a microwave, you have a toaster oven, you have an oven, you know, there's cadmium is going to be in some of the components. Okay. If you're in automotive industry at all, you know, that you're going to get exposed. Or let's say you're a wife and your husband's a mechanic. Okay, and he's working in around that kind of stuff, and you're doing the laundry.
You're gonna get exposed to that.
You get exposed, right? Okay, so that is, it's not that, again, it's not, there's nothing wrong with any of that.
Yeah.
The thing is, we have to do things to fortify ourselves against it. The exposure, right?
Yeah.
But my point in this is that cadmium is very estrogenite. It mimics estrogen. So does lead. Lead mimics estrogen. Those are just metals. Okay, there's thousands and thousands of other chemicals. Virtually all plastics have estrogen mimicking chemicals in them. Okay.
Why? I mean, what is? I mean, you told me that estrogen is like a sticky. I never even thought that estrogen could have a.
Estrogen's a real sticky compound. Okay. We call it a compound. It's a hormone, but it's a compound. It's real sticky, very, very sticky. And they use it as a hardening agent in plastics. So the harder the plastic, the more estrogen it has.
Okay. That's crazy.
It's interesting. It's just, this is, again, there's not that there's something wrong with that necessarily. It's just, it's in our environment.
So we'd probably want to reduce our plastic exposure.
Right.
And we probably want to do
cookware, drinking, drinking out of, and so temperature causes, extreme temperatures, either really cold or really hot, causes plastics to release those estrogen compounds. Okay. Mid-range temperatures? No. For some reason, doesn't seem to do that. But if you heat up plastic or you freeze it, then it releases the estrogen compounds. With things like endometriosis, okay, again, there's this, we have this estrogen dominant situation again. Here's something interesting. Even if a woman's production of estrogen, progesterone, and all her other hormones are normal, if she gets exposed to these estrogen mimicking chemicals or heavy metals, that chemically puts her into this estrogen dominant situation. So what happens is her blood, when they do a blood test and do all these lab tests, everything comes back normal. Which is nothing more frustrating than to be sick, know you're sick, and go to the lab, have tests done, and they come back normal.
Which is why women and men with chronic diseases, which are told that they don't have it, and they go from doctor to doctor to doctor, and they spend years and years of trying this and trying that, and not finding any solution.
One thing every woman needs to realize is that if you're doing what most industrial women do around all the world, doesn't matter where you live, but if you're wearing makeup, conventional makeup, putting on conventional body care products, cleaning with conventional run-of-the-mill store-bought stuff, and having your aerosols, you are a walking science experiment I call chemical soup. The average woman leaves her home with 350, almost 400 chemicals on her body that she's inhaling throughout the day. So the first thing when it comes to just fundamental women's health and men's health and everyone's health is to minimize that as much as possible. Simply put, your body can't restore. Your body can't heal. Your body can't fight off the flu virus, can't fight off cancer, can't fight off stress and anxiety when it's in that state of just survival mode. And the body perceives these chemicals these, especially synthetic fragrances, preservatives, you know, the phthalates, the parabens, the sulfites, the sulfates, all the stuff that's in all of the stuff that's being sold. And why do you think they put it in there? Not because there's some insidious, like, you know, conspiracy to kill people. This is what these chemicals are what make these products shelf stable. Because if you make a DIY, do-it-yourself product, you got maybe a month or two before bacteria starts to settle. Who wants to do that every month? Me and my wife, because we know it's good. But most people want to go to the store, get a shampoo or a lotion that's going to last them a year or two or three or four or five. So to prolong the life, right? And also there's a margin. Essential oils are so much more expensive than synthetically manufactured fragrances. So what do you think a billion-dollar company is going to do? They're making millions of dollars. They're saving millions of dollars by using fake synthetic fragrances versus the real deal. All right? So once we understand that and we realize, where do you think your perfume comes from? It's all synthetic fragrances based off of essential oils.
And you know, the crazy thing is that back then, well, even now, smell, aromas, and what we put on our skin and our body, they used to actually be medicine, healing. And the reason why they smell so good, it's to draw us to it so that we can heal, so that nature can heal us. But we have learned to separate those things, right?
That's wonderful. A friend of mine owns a non-toxic laundry company, and he did a test. He kind of went on the street, you know, like today's show, hey, give me, you know, like one of those random tests. And he had one rag that was pure white, clean, absolute beautiful white rag with no smell at all. And he had a rag that he said he literally cleaned the engine block of his car. Filthy, dirty, greasy rag, but they put the synthetic fragrance from laundry soap. And he asked people, which one do you think is cleaner? Which one do you think people chose?
The synthetic?
Yeah, because of the smell.
Ah.
It smelled clean. This one didn't smell like anything. It was like, well, I don't know if this is clean. It looks clean, but it doesn't smell clean. That's what manufacturers are capitalizing on, our smell. And there's like you said, a very much historical and evolutionary aspect to it, especially women smelling good and pheromones. And look at the animal kingdom. I mean, we're attracted to smell for just life-giving purposes, right? That's how we attract our mate oftentimes. And so to capitalize on that in a capitalistic way is, in my opinion, unethical to the highest degree. But we're here to empower and educate.
I've been in practice for almost 15 years. I started out as a women's health doctor, and it was about 7 or 8 years ago that I was going through this personal journey of, do I stay with this person that I'm with? I don't really want to have kids with him, but maybe my time is running out. And I really wasn't like sure about the whole fertility thing, right? Like, how much more time do I have? And I decided to start researching, and everything I found was contradictory almost to what we are told as women, which is at 35, our fertility is going to massively drop. And the research doesn't actually support that. There's lots of evidence that our bodies are way more capable than what we're used to, or what we've made to be believing. And I came across Dr. Christian Northrup, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. And that book literally changed my life. I read the fertility chapter in that book. That book is like a women's health Bible. I flipped to the fertility chapter, and in there she's talking about how women in other parts of the world consistently conceive at like 50 and 60 years old. And that's when I stopped and I said, maybe we need a different perspective for fertility. I think there's really two factors. One is that infertility is definitely on the rise. So according to the CDC, women in reproductive age, meaning 18 to 45, 1 in 8, that was a statistic 10 years ago, 1 in 8 couples between this age group had infertility. Now it's 1 in 6. So infertility is definitely on the rise. And I feel like in addition to that basic stat, that includes like so many young people. We're not even talking about all the people that chose to wait till later in life to be able to get pregnant. So I think we have a really big problem, and it's going to continue growing. I don't think that problem is going away.
Wow. And what is in the water? What is going on? Why are so many women dealing with infertility?
Yeah, I mean it's in some ways it's a product of our modern culture. So partly it's the toxins that are literally everywhere, the toxins that are in our environment, the toxins that we're slathering onto our bodies every single day. So I think that's a big component. And then to add to it, we have all the different stressors. And toxins in some way are a chemical stress. But in addition to that, we have lots of physical stress. We have mental, emotional, spiritual stress. So I think that all of those layers are happening all the time. And our bodies haven't quite adapted. So our body's like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. So I think we're just throwing way more at it, which is causing lots of hormonal imbalances. And I think that probably the toxins even that our parents were using have affected our fertility.
Because it passes through the womb.
Exactly. So a lot of it is not reversible, unfortunately, but so much of it is. And I think that we have a lot more control than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, and I also, I remember talking to a colleague of mine. It was almost like saying that our bodies are literally telling us that this is not a safe environment to produce a baby.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is it that our body's just trying to protect ourselves and the baby?
Absolutely. I tell women this all the time, is if we don't have the nutritional status, the hormonal status, and kind of the lower toxin burden that would produce a healthy baby, our body is gonna abort mission. Like we don't want to go there if our body isn't going to be capable of producing a good, healthy, vibrant human being most of the time, right? And sure, there's the chance of genetic things that pass through, but in general, our body wants to produce a healthy baby. And it's also a survival mechanism for our own selves. So when we are in a deficiency state, there's no way our body's signing up to reproduce, right? It's saying, our body's saying, I barely have the resources for my own survival. There's no way I'm bringing another life into this world that's going to depend on me and pull out more of my resources for the next 9 months at least to more like 2 years, as you know.
My job to read hundreds of different articles and studies, and I was floored. I was floored about the therapeutic efficacy of how essential oils can help balance blood sugar, balance blood pressure, help with pain, anxiety, depression, some of the things that I struggled with. And so I, like many wives, I'll go to Sabrina, I'm like, did you know essential oils? Did you know? And she was like, yes, I've been trying to tell you that for years. And again, I was floored, just dumbfounded by not only the in vitro, cells in a petri dish study, but the animal trials and the human trials, because there's a lot of research being done on women around the world and how essential oils can help. And so from that was just birthed this passion to empower women that there are solutions and without the side effects that happen with drugs.
Initially, when I went to seek out answers, when all this was happening, I saw one more holistic doctor and one traditional doctor. And the holistic doctor's feedback was, you weren't born this way. I know that this can be fixed. You just developed this as an adult, so something happened. We need to find what the trigger was that caused this to happen. And when I went to the traditional doctor, the reason why I was exposed that route was because I had ended up choking on a piece of food because my throat had closed off for 8 hours. In the past, I was a little bit more stubborn. So most people would say, you really sat for 8 hours and waited to go to the hospital? Yes. So when I got there, obviously they were concerned because they're like, you're severely dehydrated, you're really weak. Had to put me under right away to get this out. And then their feedback was, My throat had obviously closed up. They're like, we believe that you have food allergies that are triggering in your esophagus, which are causing it to close up. So it had grabbed this piece of food at the bottom of my esophagus where it wouldn't drop off into my stomach. So the route they wanted to go was different things, multiple testing, potential surgery. They wanted to put me on like 6 different medications. And one of the feedback was, don't worry, we're formulating a pill right now for allergies that's going to just mask all this and it'll be great. You'll be able to eat whatever you want. And I remember thinking, well, what's in that pill if it's going to mask all my food allergies? Like, what are the other side effects I'm going to get with that? And the reason I immediately thought that was, well, I'd already been on 4 different allergy medications my whole life. I had already had allergy shots my whole life. And obviously my state of health is worse now than it was then. So I literally had a moment of like kind of common sense. I don't want another allergy pill. I believe that's what got me here in the first place, because I have more allergies now today than I did then because of being on all these things.
You see that pattern.
I do. In my fibromyalgia patients, a lot of them share with them that's what brought it on. And it's terrible to say, I was doing good till I had my son, and there's some guilt with that too, right? But I believe that stress of having a baby, it's incredibly stressful. And then once you have the baby, all the stress that goes with it, the poor sleep, just trying to juggle so many roles. A lot of the patients that I've worked with over the years were type A's.
Okay.
They just
Doers.
so they worked sometimes 40, 60 hours a week.
Wow.
And then their child came along and they were still trying to work full time, and do it and be the best mom they could be the best wife they could be the best person at their church, volunteering, doing things at the church. They tried to do it all, and they started to see that stress slowly started to take it out of them to where they got run down. They couldn't keep up.
And does it manifest in different ways, or do you usually see similar patterns to this?
It's a great question. So I think it can manifest in different ways, different people, but I think the common denominator is stress.
Okay.
If you ask most doctors, they'll tell you that really 90% of our illnesses are brought on by stress. Stress is the catalyst, and it doesn't matter what you call it. So we can call it fibromyalgia, we can call it migraine headaches, we can call it low back pain, whatever it is, Stress is the catalyst. And for the patients that I work with, they go through life and then something comes along, maybe it's chronic stress that they've had for a number of years. Maybe it's just, maybe it's a difficult marriage, or maybe it's a difficult job, or maybe it's a series of illnesses that got them run down. And then they get pregnant. And for them, that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. Or it could be a hysterectomy. I see that a lot. So they go in, they have a hysterectomy, and they're doing okay, and then they have the hysterectomy, and then they're never the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it's the thing that what happens is, and I use this analogy, that we're all born with a stress coping savings account. And in that stress coping savings account, we have certain chemicals that allow us to deal with stress. And the more stress that we get under, the more chemicals we need. So we have serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, DHEA, vitamins, minerals. And anytime, whether it's a mental stress or a physical stress, that we're experiencing that, then we have these chemicals that are ready to be released, and we deal with that stress. But if we're not careful, as we get run down, and this is what, in particular with fibromyalgia, they get run down. So what happens is they deplete their stress coping savings account. Then when they get under stress, maybe it is a hysterectomy, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Okay.
They can't overcome that because they don't have the chemicals, they don't have the hormones that they need to be able to handle that stress. Well, I think anytime, I think we don't have any extra parts, number one. I think, God's pretty brilliant. And anytime you go in and have a part removed, that's incredibly stressful. But in particularly for a female, when you're removing her ovaries and you're taking away one of the sources of producing hormones that are part of making her unique self, mentally, emotionally, as well as just physically, physiologically, that's going to create some challenges, and oftentimes it does. And once you start to deplete estrogen levels or progesterone levels or both, you disrupt this homeostatic, mechanism that we have in the body that's supposed to be running a certain way. Unfortunately, I think what happens is there's a lot of those that have hysterectomies probably don't need hysterectomies, but it's the only option that they're told that they have.
Right. Right.
And then they have that, Lori, and then they're never the same.
You can actually do your own detective work, and I'd like to explain to you how. Why would you want to do your own detective work? You're seeing maybe one doctor, could be 5, could be 10, and they all are ordering different tests. They're all recommending different supplements, different treatments, and it's a lot of decision making you have to do in terms of which makes sense to you. But you can actually start to investigate and figure out the cause of your health challenge while all the diagnosis and treatment is going on, trying to figure out, waiting for tests. So this is what you do. You look back in your history to that point in time when your health began to change. So everything was going great up until when? When you moved into the new house. Everything was going great until you started that job at the laboratory. Everything was going wonderful until you made that trip to India and studied at the ashram. So go back in your history and remember when your health was ideal, the way you wish it were now. And then think of, okay, at that moment, when I moved into that newly constructed house, when I took that trip across the world, what could have been some of the exposures that could have unsettled the way that my body was working? So let's say traveling, you're exposed to different foods, different water. Could you have taken on some mysterious bugs that maybe didn't jive with the colony that you already had inhabiting your digestive system? Could you have lived in rooms in that new house that were off-gassing formaldehyde from the cabinets, the new flooring, styrene from the carpeting, or the new mattress? So start to think back specifically to what was surrounding you when your health dropped off, or when your health simply gradually started going downhill. That's where you start collecting the first clues. You think of, what was around me? What was I eating? What was I drinking? What was I breathing? Where was I spending most of my time when things started to go downhill? And it's not simply the environment. Sometimes it's the environment combined with some emotional upheaval. So was there a big disappointment? Was there a big life transition happening at the same time that you had a different environment? So if you look at those two factors, you can kind of see this alchemy that they combine to stress your body in a way that it couldn't compensate for any longer. As we get older, let's say in our 30s and 40s and then 50s, we don't have as big of a margin to work with. So when we get an insult from a particular exposure, let's say it's even a supplement we were taking that we thought would be really helpful to us, but it was contaminated with a chemical during the processing process, or a heavy metal from where it was grown, then our body might not be able to overcome that if we're continuing to be exposed day after day, month after month, year after year. So that's the first principle of doing your own detective work, is thinking back in your history to when things started going downhill. Health is the foundation of all good things in life. Come on. That's not even a fair question. Health is where we start. We're all given gifts that we want to give in this world. We want to contribute something, or we want to put lots of love into our families.
It is true. I found this on my journey too. Each of our bodies is unique, and so what is triggering your illnesses may not be the exact thing as someone else. But there are common culprits, and because of this, there are protocols and solutions that can be universally applied to produce incredible results. We know how we feel, and we can try to convey that to a doctor, but stepping in and learning to listen to our own bodies is key. When we take the initiative to learn what's working and what's not working for us, it allows us that chance to tune in and make changes that really matter and that can really heal. Earlier, we talked about emotional trauma and how our mental state can affect our health. But is there a way to reverse this trauma, to heal our minds so that our bodies can heal? Here, we want to touch on this episode. But if you tune in again to our next episode, you'll get a chance to find out about this subject in detail and hear amazing stories of women who've reversed diseases by curing their mental state.
We also want to begin the conversation here about the solutions that doctors are finding and how they've used these to heal their patients from disease. And these are the kinds of diseases that their patients have been told that there's no cure for.
We want to highlight a few of these ideas here, but if you stay with us for this incredible 9-episode journey, you'll get to find detailed insight into practical protocols and solutions that these women have used to change their lives.
The potency of plant-based medicine is because of the essential oil. That's it. And it's plant medicine in its pure, unadulterated form. And so God gave plants these volatile, what they're known as, chemically speaking, volatile organic compounds. They are the chemicals that easily emit. They easily evaporate. So through steam distillation, they survive through the steam distillation process. They go through it, everything. They don't get harmed. They don't get destroyed. When you put your nose into a rose, you're smelling that, right? And so what I think is really fun to think about, and also it's eye-opening to realize, hey, when it comes to medicine today, where do we think chemists got the chemical structures for the drugs that we take? It wasn't in a vacuum. It wasn't a scientist waking up from a divine revelation, but like, hey, let's combine these carbon atoms with these nitrogen. No. The chemical structures that we see in drugs are directly from the chemical structures that we see in plants. Perfect example is willow. Our ancestors have used willow bark since the beginning of time to help with pain. Well, where do you think the chemical structure of aspirin came from? Willow bark. But here's the thing, what's easier? Taking a white shiny pill or getting out willow, mixing something and smelling like willow? But you know, combat medicine, World War I, World War II, before antibiotic was invented, was essential oils. I mean, front lines, medics, tea tree, lavender, oregano. These are antimicrobial agents to the utmost, antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial. These essential oils are known as bioactive compounds, on par with polyphenols and carotenoids, which are plant-based chemicals in your food that are rich in antioxidants. That's why they help your immune system. The chemicals like in peppermint and wintergreen and eucalyptus, menthol. You've heard of menthol, right? I'm sure. Menthol, eucalyptus, Vicks Vapor Rub, and Bengay, your pain relieving properties. Well, that's what we see in plants. So when you extract those essential oils from the plants through steam distillation, you get it in its pure, unadulterated form. That's why you can stop a headache and migraine in its tracks. That's why when I was researching for my book, obviously headaches are, maybe not obviously, but headaches are one of the most common symptoms related to PMS. But to deal with the symptoms, like putting some peppermint, a little bit of coconut oil on your hand, giving yourself just a quick temple rub, back of your neck, like that can actually stop a migraine immediately. That could stop a headache immediately. Using clary sage, which our ancestors have used for thousands of years in herbal extract. Clary sage is wonderful for cramps. I mean, just get just simply put a little bit of olive oil, 1 or 2 drops of clary sage, rub it on your tummy.
And so a lot of times what's going on, if somebody's got an ongoing issue, it's not because they're feeling that emotion just in the moment, but it's because that emotion, or rather combination of emotions, is going on in the subconscious mind. And so that's what I do, is I help people to identify the specific emotions that are going on in their subconscious mind and help them to shift those emotions. And when they do, I see the most incredible things. I mean, I see people that I've worked with who, with things like MS, were paralyzed, like legs frozen, stuck stiff. And one person I'm thinking of, like her legs were frozen, stuck stiff, couldn't move them at all, like couldn't even have somebody straighten them for her. And so what I did is I just helped her identify the specific emotions that were going on, and we started working on them. And it took about 25, 28 minutes, somewhere in there, to be able to get her legs to straighten, which had been stuck, frozen, stuck stiff. Or even last week, I worked with a woman who has MS, and her arms had been frozen, stuck stiff, and her legs paralyzed. And so I showed her how to use her mind and start shifting the specific emotions. And as she did, her arm that had been stuck, paralyzed, frozen, stuck for over 3 years, she was able to straighten it. And as we continued to work, I worked on another part with her legs. Her knees began to jump up and down. And that first was involuntary movement. And so right now I have multiple people with MS that are actually working on walking, you know, and so excited to be having voluntary movement in their arms and hands again.
How does somebody look for healing when sometimes something that normally would have a cause that you would correlate, but then it becomes so much deeper because there's so many other combining ingredients that have created the problem? The only way to fix it is to actually either tackle all of them or a few key ones that are going to help then resolve the others. Help me to understand this, because it's quite fascinating and puzzling to me at the same time.
So to be able to overcome all these factors, such as the traumatic events that happen in your life, whether they're emotional, physical, the issue with those is that it's a multifaceted approach. You can't just heal by addressing one thing. Supplements is not going to cause your healing to happen by itself, right? And the other thing is just changing your diet can help, but it's not going to be the full answer. Doing counseling is going to help, but it's not going to be the full answer. You have to look at it as a multi-therapeutic approach, and that's going to include changing your diet, varying your diet, doing some fasting protocols that can help shift things in your body. It include exercise and even varying up different types of exercise, and then supplementation that's going to remove infection, remove toxins, heal organ function, and to heal the cells. And make sure to get those membranes highly functional and being able to be sure the inflammation is out at that cellular level so that you get optimal signaling. And then from there, the last thing I always talk to clients that come into my clinic is mindset. What is your mindset to overcome these health issues? For me, I have a lot of stories in regards to that, but I ask them, what is your passion? What is your mission and purpose here in life? What's your reason for getting better? You have to know those answers, because you have to have that driving factor that's going to make you do hard things to get you through to the point that you feel healed again and that you do have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose here or mission here in life, man, that'd be depressing. Why are we here? What's the purpose for us being here on earth? In my case, for me, as I was going through my health journey, I looked at one day, it came down to one point that I remembered. Family to me is so important. I wanted to be this amazing father and this amazing dad. And I remember coming home one day from work and driving up, and I just was so fatigued. And I saw my kids, my 5-year-old son and my oldest daughter, who was 9 at the time, playing baseball with my next door neighbor. That wasn't me. I wasn't the first one to do that with my kids. That was a punch in the gut. At that moment, I changed my mindset that, hey, I got to do anything and everything to be able to overcome my health issues and to be able to have the energy to function and to lead a life of vitality, of health, to lead a life of passion and purpose. And so
we have to have those moments in our life to really overcome these issues and look at it as not one thing is going to get me better. I'm just going to go treat Lyme disease. I'm just going to go treat parasites. I'm just going to go treat, use counseling. No, it's everything that comes together to get us better.
We've come to a place now where our food doesn't have enough nourishment. We don't get enough selenium, magnesium, calcium. We don't get enough of nourishment normally. If I'm eating meat and chicken, I'd be lacking so much. I'd be lacking iodine big time. And iodine is what the thyroid is working from. That's what it needs as a food. So where do I get that? I have to eat seaweed. So seaweed is a plant that will be amazing with minerals, the right kind of sodium, and the iodine to feed you, and high protein, and somewhat omega-3. Omega-3 is something we need all our life. So when people want to go over to a plant-based diet, there's so many reasons. Your hormones, okay? Your well-being when it comes to your whole body, and being nourished and being able to do what you want in life. So take the first step, and if you wonder about what's going to happen, maybe you do it one day a week to begin with, and you just go purely plant-based, and then you start slowly but surely do more. Fruit has sugar. That's about the only sugar that we normally would have some, but if you are fighting something, let's say right now you have Lyme disease, or you have cancer, or you have Hep C or HIV or any more serious problem, you should stay out of sugar for a while and let your body heal, because sugar will feed every virus, bacteria, pathogen, including all the fungus and parasites, anything that would love to have sugar to thrive. Don't feed them.
There's so many toxins.
Yes.
so many.
Yeah.
I think if we start at the environmental level, really it's all the plastic that's in our environment.
Plastics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So plastic, the main components of plastic are BPA and BPS, and now like BPF or something like that.
Okay.
But all the bis polyphenols that are in the plastic that potentially leach into, let's say it's water, or drinking water bottles, our food, if we put hot food from cooking into a container, it's now in there. Coffee cups that are lined with the inner part of it is plastic. Wow. So you pour in hot coffee and now you have this plastic leaching directly into your drink. Oh. So it's literally like too much exposure to these chemicals that are essentially like estrogen. So they work against us in two different ways. One is that they're increasing our estrogen levels, and two, they're increasing it in a way that's not actually acting on receptors. So you have a double whammy to your hormone system, because now you have an estrogen that's like bumping up your estrogen load, but it's not actually the type of estrogen that you need to have a good, healthy reproductive cycle.
Whoa, okay.
The one that I like to talk about a lot is makeup, because statistics are that most women slather on at least 56 chemicals and toxins before they leave their house in the morning. That's crazy. And as you know, skin is our biggest organ.
That's right.
It's absorbing everything we put on. So it's as good as like eating the food, right? So if your makeup is not edible, it probably shouldn't be going on your body.
Such a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a really easy solution, because you have so much control over what makeup you use.
Yeah.
And we live in an amazing time where, at least here in the US, we have access to companies that are making clean makeup. Yeah. There's resources like the Environmental Working Group, the EWG.org, I think. You can put in your brand of makeup and it'll tell you how clean it is, easy. there's companies like Naked Poppy, and they're doing amazing work because they actually like independently test all of the makeup.
Yeah.
So it's not even just a brand, it's down to, they came out with their own eyeliner recently because there's no eyeliner on the market that's actually clean enough.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's
and
insane.
That's amazing that they came up with it. And
Yeah.
That's awesome. And have you heard of the Think Dirty app?
No,
There's,
I haven't.
Yeah, it's called Think Dirty.
Okay.
And you literally can scan the barcode. You're at Walgreens or Rite Air, wherever you buy your makeup, and it's not just with makeup, it's with all things like
that's cool.
shampoos, lotions, food. You know, you can scan the barcode. It'll give you a score from 0 to 10 of how toxic it is, 0 being none and 10 being the most. And it'll go through all the ingredients. You can click on that ingredient and they'll tell you the studies as to why, like
It's
whether
not
this
good
is
for you.
dangerous or why it's not, you know, things like that. So nowadays you even have that. That can help you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really huge thing.
Yeah.
I think we should all have this.
Before you continue this episode, you might want to take a minute to check out one of our best custom formulas which we've developed for toxin and heavy metal detox, ToxiBinder. ToxiBinder, while being an excellent chelation agent and aiding in eliminating toxins from the body, is also extremely helpful for the liver, the greatest detox organ, but also for the kidneys and immune health. A couple of the key ingredients in ToxiBinder include humic and fulvic acid. These substances are bioactive compounds that bind toxic and inorganic metals and remove them from the body, as well as acting as scavengers against free radicals. Another unique qualifier of fulvic acid is its ability to cross the cell membrane, thus extracting toxins on a more effective level than other chelation agents. Fulvic acid is able to work in combination with these other chelation agents to boost their detoxifying power. ToxiBinder also includes other amazing compounds such as cordyceps mushrooms, silymarin, uva ursi leaf, yucca root, dandelion root, rhodiola rosea, and lipase, all of which, when combined, are effective and powerful remedies in detoxifying the body, supporting a healthy liver and kidneys, fighting free radicals, and boosting the immune system. ToxiBinder is a standout detoxifier with an ingredient combination that you won't see anywhere else. We've heard so many incredible testimonies from customers who have been using this, as well as our other Well of Life products. In fact, several of the women who you've heard their amazing transformation stories, the women that overcame serious conditions and challenges to their health that you saw towards the start of this episode, these women, several of them, use this very same product and other related products from Well of Life for their healing protocol. So we just wanted to let you know about some of the key tools we're seeing people use in their healing journey, and this is one of them, and we've seen it to be so effective, so we wanted to let you know.
And there's so many other natural ways and more healthy ways. And at the end of the day, though, to suppress your hormone system to the point where you don't have bad PMS symptoms isn't the solution. Like, why are you in that state to begin with? And oftentimes, it's because your body's in toxic overload. Why? It's because your body is in a pre-autoimmune state where it's just on heightened alert, too many toxins, toxic thoughts, toxic relationships, your body, you're chronically stressed, you're not getting enough sleep. Like, are you recovering at night? Do you feel loved? I mean, where is your emotional balance? All this comes into play, right? What kind of food are you eating? Is it real food? Is it all processed? Too much sugar? It's overwhelming what society has put on the plate of a woman. And a lot of women watching are single moms. And my heart goes out to single moms more than anything, because I get a taste of what it's like being a single dad for like 2 weeks in the year. When my wife goes up north to spend some time with friends and family, she works and she does some fun stuff with her mom, and I'm all alone with the kids for 2 weeks, and it's like, Lord Jesus, how do women do this? I kid you not. Like, my heart goes out to single moms especially, and caretakers. How many women are the caretakers for their elderly parents and grandparents? And when you don't take care of yourself because you're caring for others, when you're barely able to even think about making your food from scratch, and you're just living from fast food to fast food and just getting through the day, going through the coffee, energy drinks, which completely put your hormones out of whack. Completely suppresses your body's natural endorphin and dopamine and serotonin balance. That's what all this is. Insulin resistance, cortisol through the roof, right? Hormones.
Yeah.
Right? And once women start to really incorporate a lifestyle, if they can, that produces peace, calming in their mind and their heart and their soul and spirit, eating foods that are anti-inflammatory, good, healthy, plant-based nutrition, staying away from the sugars, like sugar, worst thing on the planet, staying away from excess caffeine, staying away from alcohol abuse.
One of the ways I explain detox is you have to remove the waste and toxins so you can move the nutrients in,
Yes.
you know?
Okay.
And so by cleansing the body, detoxing the body, and getting the garbage out, you know, we can bring the good stuff in, and it actually does what it's supposed to do.
So let's definitely go into this. So now, I mean, we've talked about so many conditions that, you know, women face, and even men face,
Right, sure.
And the environmental toxins. We've talked about the connective tissues. We talked about how it all. We've talked about how our society has gotten really good at stabilizing, which is the very first step, right?
First step, excellent.
Which is great. That's the first step in the healing process, right? What would you do in stabilizing? This is the first step, which is prepping the body to detox, or because
you know, well,
stabilizing.
Here's the 3 steps. The 3 steps are stabilize, detoxify, and then fortify. Okay, and so once you're stable, once someone's stable, they're now strong enough to detoxify. Okay, in detoxing, you don't necessarily have to get worse before you get better.
Okay.
Typically, the typical thing is to start at the cellular level and work your way out. Okay. We'll just call it backwards.
Okay. All right.
It's backwards because you wouldn't, if you're working in the kitchen, and the sink's plugged, you wouldn't start cleaning the dishes. Not in that sink, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because if you turn the water on, you start cleaning the dishes, eventually the water's going to overflow and you're going to make a mess in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's plugged in our bodies?
Right. So that's what we have to go back. And we have to unplug everything first. Okay. The first and foremost is the colon. Okay. There's an old naturopathic saying, one of our naturopathic proverbs, if you will, and that is, you can only detox as fast as your colon.
So 3 bowel movements?
3 bowel movements a day, that's normal. If that is not the case for you, let's paint a picture here. Let's say lady comes to see me, she's having some metabolic problems, she's having some female problems, there's inflammation in her system, and she cannot lose weight. Okay? She's eating 21 times a week, but she's only going to the bathroom 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, where are the other 18 meals?
And metabolic and lady issues,
They go
things
hand in
like
hand.
what are those?
A metabolic would be, let's say, fatigue, maybe some thyroid symptoms, maybe some adrenal fatigue symptoms, those types of things, along with maybe some a cyst, or maybe having some endometriosis or something along those lines, and then you throw this digestive system sluggishness on top of all of that.
Brain fog.
And you're going to have brain fog. You can probably run into some depression, some anxiety.
Yeah.
There's most likely you're going to have skin issues from all of this.
Like acne, eczema,
that kind of.
That's included as well?
Oh, absolutely. Because your digestive tract from start to finish is all designed to absorb. Okay, so if there's waste that isn't being eliminated, it's being reabsorbed. Okay, now when that happens, all that gets reabsorbed and gets stored off in your lymphatic system. Okay, which plugs up your lymphatic system. Your body's sewer system is your lymphatic system. Okay, imagine in your neighborhood, if the sewer system got all plugged up, okay, and none of the houses could flush the toilet. What kind of havoc would that wreak on the house? Okay, that's what happens to people's cells in every tissue of their body when their lymphatic system is not flushing, is not moving. That sets the stage. You can't. Okay, so anything toxic that you add on top of that is going to trigger an inflammatory response.
What about a typical thing as menopause? Women with menopause.
With menopause, you're going to have, what happens at menopause is the hormone cycle of a monthly cycle slows down, and it starts to spread out, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year.
And that's considered normal.
That's considered normal, right.
It
is. I've had ladies in their 60s that have gone through our program and get about 6 months, 8 months into our program and get really upset with me because they started having their period again.
What? 60 years old?
The oldest lady that I've ever had as a patient that started her period again hadn't had a period for 20 years. She was 68 years old.
That totally.
What happened is in the process, we turned back the clock.
So, and this was part of it, prepping the body.
Right.
And what was going on?
We did some nutritional rebuilding, kind of just building her up at first, trying to patch the holes,
Did she have some clogging issues?
No, she had a lot of inflammatory issues in her case. And so before we detoxed her, we kind of built her up a little bit, green foods, enzymes, multivitamin, just some stuff to help her feel a little better and get her built up, Took her through our whole detox program, got her working on inflammatory and microbiome type issues. And in the process, she was having hot flashes. She started having hot flashes, as things, it was really kind of interesting. She hadn't had hot flashes. And then as she was detoxing, she started getting hot flashes.
So it was like going backwards.
And it was like the clock was being turned back, literally. And then as we got her through the detox and she's started into the microbiome and anti-inflammatory, programs and things like that, she really started feeling a lot better, but started having some hot flashes. And then we got her on to some things to help with the hot flashes at that point, just different adaptogens and things. And it wasn't but a couple months later. She was on the adaptogens for about 2 months, and voila.
Wow. So her connective tissues definitely
came back together. The hormones,
how was her
working.
mind?
She felt great. That was until she had her period. Then she's like,
and I mean, did she have struggle? What about? Did she struggle
prior to all of that?
Yeah,
that was definitely part of everything. She was having memory issues. She had, if you're sick for a long period of time, you can't help but be depressed. I mean, it would be normal.
So it's not a typical aging thing.
No.
There's reasons for these things.
Right. If you've been sick for 10 years, 20 years in some people's case, 30 years. I've had patients who've been sick for 30, 40 years.
So prior she was memory issues, brain fog, what other things?
In her case, it was memory issues, brain fog. She'd get down periodically, some depression. She had gut and joint inflammatory issues. Okay. And that as that all resolved, all of a sudden her hormonal issues started resolving.
So she got her period back. But how was she after that? All of those things she was feeling more
were
energetic.
She
brain
she
clear?
got her life back. About it was prior to that. About halfway through the detox portion of her program, her husband started, because he's like, dude, she's got so much energy, I can't keep up with her.
Yeah.
Energy. I'd like to just talk a little bit about energy. There's so much mitochondrial resuscitation, nutrients, vitamin C, vitamin D, amazing for energy, melatonin, acetyl L-carnitine, carnitine as well. Shilajit. I don't know if you know, Shilajit is one of my favorite nutrients. There's
because
so
it's high
much.
in fulvic, right?
It is super high in fulvic, but there's other ingredients in it that just pops in. It's really great for testosterone. I use it for myself. I'm 57, and I haven't had a cycle in a long time, but it's my way of boosting my testosterone levels. And then, of course, all the essential minerals. I love amino acids. Amino acids, I think, are key. And I'm talking about 8 essential amino acids, not one by lot, not just branching. All 8 is essential for cellular metabolism and muscle health, muscle building, brain health, everything. Chlorella is amazing mitochondrial upregulator. But if you're going to do a green drink, okay, this study just blows my mind. This study about if you go out in the sunlight, all right, when you're drinking your green drink, right? And when you charge your skin, if you're in the sunlight and you charge your skin up, it actually activates your mitochondria to make more CoQ10. The sunlight with chlorophyll. So I'm saying chlorella is because there's chlorophyll. The green part, right? The chlorophyll, it charges it. And it just is brilliant information for me. So all my patients in the morning, they do the apple fresh green, the green drink, they go outside, do their little routine, because the sun is going to charge up your mitochondria and produce more CoQ10, which then of course you have more energy.
Awesome.
Right?
And does that help with detox?
Every cell you're detoxing right now as you and I are talking. Every cell, we go through it all. Sure, there are times where you want more, right? For the liver, for different detoxification, for hormones or whatnot. But definitely our cells right now, and of course it will. Anything that is going to upregulate your energy production, you're going to exchange the toxins from the inside and out, the water metabolism within the inside and out. It's going to all help. So yeah, of course, detox is the way. I mean, we got to know it's got to be all the time, That's why you want the right nutrients to be in your body. And it starts with food. But I'm a big believer in nutritional supplements, big believer.
We've been talking about cleansing. We've been talking about the fact that we're finally starting to get existing tangible data to prove that the conditions that were once always put forward as being like these genetic conditions are actually not genetic, in that that's not what's causing them.
No.
They're messing with the genes, but in terms of like when people are saying like, oh, this is probably just in the family, this is some kind of rare genetic disorder. No, this is actually a toxin exposure. And the different types of toxins are going to dictate what type of symptom or disease or condition that person will have, correct?
Oh, that's absolutely true. We totally understand how the different environmental toxins that we're being exposed to, and infections too, they are literally changing how our systemic engines work and how our genetic engines are working. It's not the other way around. Our genes don't make us sick. It's our environment that changes our genetic expression that allows us to get sick.
Yeah. We're unknowingly exposing ourselves, and now we have data that we can use. So we can actually find if we are having environmental toxic exposure and if we're having a toxic overload and what chemicals they are. So the testing is out there now. We can actually look at that, and we're finding really crazy results coming back on people's toxin tests and glyphosate tests and their heavy metals test, where we're seeing high levels of toxins that are known to be endocrine disruptors, that are known to be neurotoxins, to cause, issues with Alzheimer's and anxiety and depression and memory loss and cancers. We're actually able to look and find those as root causes now. And once we find that information, then we are empowered to do something about it. And that's where we can go in and start implementing protocols to help people to detox these super toxic substances out of their body that are literally making them sick.
The secondary aspect is detoxification of that. Always with hormone issues, you got to look at detoxification, liver, gallbladder function, and gut function as well. Your gut is actually a really important area with metabolizing hormone and eliminating hormones. So this is where doing some type of gut work, right, either through some type of gut detox kit or some type of gut healing kit could be very beneficial, because what you're doing is you don't want to take every one of your symptoms. Oh, hot flash, it's a symptom. What pill do I take for that? You know, endometriosis, it's another symptom. What pill do I take for that? And low libido, it's another symptom. What do I take for that? What you want to do is you want to do the thing that's going to address your physiology, right? Creating a healthier physiology will create a healthier person. Therefore, your symptom falls away like leaves in the fall, and they fall away as a side effect of you becoming healthy. And the way you do that is by working on detoxification, improving liver, gallbladder health. Gut health is really important in this as well. And then looking at activation standpoint, hypothalamus to pituitary, you got to mind your blood sugar, keep your blood sugar steady. You can't have highs and lows, skipping meals, or getting into hypoglycemic episodes, or eating way too much carbs and sugars where you're creating pre-diabetic tendency. Those are all things that can stress out the hypothalamus pituitary, as well as infections from viruses, from bacteria, from parasite can also affect the hypothalamus pituitary, as well as inflammation from just having autoimmune. You're by default having autoimmune, you're going to have more inflammation than someone who does not have autoimmune. So you got to address the inflammatory piece. So again, to address hormone is really a holistic issue of more than just the ovary, more than just the hormone. You got to address the gut health, liver health, gallbladder, as well as blood sugar, inflammation. It's a total picture.
With the detox process, though, if the bowels aren't moving, the lymphatic system will back up.
So it's the colon, then the lymphatic system.
If the problem is, if you try to detox the cells, okay, they will dump all their toxins into the tissues, which have to be drained by the lymphatic system. But if the lymphatic system is
already
plugged,
overflowing,
they don't have any place to go.
Yeah.
So you only can feel worse before your body starts adapting to that and overcoming it. Okay, and so we got to get the digestive tract waste eliminated. We got to get the lymphatic system going. Once that's done, then we can start working on the kidneys and the liver, get the filtration systems going, and they'll clean up the rest of the lymphatic system.
They'll clean up the cellular.
Right.
That it automatically happens.
Right. Because you got to get the drainage system working in order for the cells and the tissues to detox. And it's the cells and the tissues, that's where you're going to have your primary symptoms, right?
Yes.
Fatigue and the hormonal issues, the brain fog, and all that kind of stuff is a cellular tissue type thing. Heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, female issues, those are all cellular tissue issues.
Really?
But you can't get the toxins out of those tissues if the drainage system isn't working right.
Yeah. So that's prepping the body, clearing the drainage pathways.
Exactly. That's why detox is the place. If you can successfully get through detox, this is the place where your health goes from bad to improving. Okay, it's the pivot, and so you have to stabilize, then you have to detox. Once you get over the hump of detoxing, then the rebuilding is really easy.
Hey, it's Jonathan here. You know, there are a lot of cleansers out there that help to detox the body from heavy metals or from parasites, but many of them don't really deal with the lymphatic system. It seems like many times this part of detoxing is overlooked and only the liver and kidneys are the focus. However, once you've done a detox, it's important to take that time to help clear out your lymphatic system and get it working properly. The lymphatic system is a huge part of your immune system, and if it's impaired, you may be missing a big part of your healing protocol. Some great herbs for lymph cleansing are Portiaco, which contains blood cleansing compounds and antioxidants, Cleaver's herb, which enhances the ability of the lymphatic system to flush out toxins and decrease congestion, red peony root, which gets the lymph system moving and clears away dead cellular tissue. These are just a few of what we used in our supplement with Well of Life called Lymph Flow, which we created to deal with this problem. Whatever you choose in your healing protocol, you definitely want to look for things that are going to really address the lymphatic system directly after you've cleansed your other systems.
Start the DIY, the do-it-yourself lifestyle. And like my wife teaches so cleverly, if you don't have time to DIY and make all your products, you can easily go to the natural health food store, get unscented products. We like Desert Essence, you can get Dr. Bronner's. If you can get your hands on some unscented products, then you add some essential oils to it, like unscented, chemical-free products. It's so simple. And then you get your own jar, you get your own container, you put a couple pumps of the unscented stuff, a couple drops of oil. I mean, couple, that's fine. There's no like recipe for this stuff. You gotta find what works for you. And it gives you power back. So now you walk out of the house and maybe you only have 50 chemicals instead of 350. It's a good start.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Take one step at a time, and then it's amazing how fast your knowledge base grows over time. You just start applying, right?
Mm-hmm.
The drugs are not designed to remove these toxins. The drugs are designed to inhibit the symptoms that are being caused by the toxins, right? So if you're just covering up the symptom, then what's happening? The problem is just getting worse underneath, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're going to be talking about today, it's going to be so exciting, is we're going to be talking about what different, herbs and what different, natural substances that we can use to help detoxify the body, to help bind to these toxins and to help get them out.
Awesome. Now, and one big takeaway as well for people is that drugs are going to also add to the toxic load.
Of course they do.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to combat. And so even if theoretically there was an ability for a drug to remove toxins, which is arguable that even can't happen in theory, but even if that was possible, we'd be adding to the toxic load as well. So thankfully, we're not left without tools. Tools have been available. These, and some of the things we're going to discuss as well, are not only been used for the last 50 or 100 years, these have been used for thousands
of years. Yeah.
And societies and cultures around the world have developed these and passed them down generations for thousands of years. And they've actually it's not primitive medicine, it's actually superior medicine. It's standing on the backs of giants. Ayurvedic medicine, even Roman medicine, Chinese medicine, and Ayurvedic obviously being Indian. And then you have Native American medicine, and the list just keeps going.
It's absolutely amazing, and we need it more than ever now. So, we're very, very fortunate that so many of us have been able to actually, look a little bit deeper and go back to some of our roots. And we have all of the data to show that it works, because we can find people that are showing super high toxic load levels on their toxin tests. We can use these different natural substances that we're getting ready to talk about, and we can retest people and we can see that the levels are coming down. Yeah. Super, super cool.
Some doctors will say, I'm so proud of you, it's so great. Some doctors will say, you're crazy, get out of the office, get out of here, and start screaming at them. It's the reaction is so far-fetched. I had one woman with lupus and discoid lupus on her face that made a complete recovery. And she went back to her dermatologist, and the dermatologist screamed at her and threw her out of the office. Said, what, are you going to eat carrots and celery the rest of your life? Get out of here. That's what he said to her. She comes back to my office and she's crying. I said, what are you crying for? You got better. He's the crazy person with some problem with his life, isn't feeling compassionate and proud of you for you getting well. And so he's the one with the problem, not you. You got better. Feel great about yourself. So I just couldn't believe it. She was upset that he was yelling at her.
That's beautiful.
But people sometimes, they get bullied from authoritative figures, and the medical doctors tell them what to do and think they have to listen to somebody instead of them being their own best advocate and reading and learning and making the best choices for their life. So here I'm excited to report that people with autoimmune diseases can make complete recoveries, and they should not give up and just take cancer-causing drugs the rest of their life. This is the first step in the healing process. In the vast majority of cases, they can make a complete recovery.
And this goes back to people like Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist who was in the Holocaust, and he wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. And he basically said that the people who survived this traumatic Holocaust event the best were people who'd created a positive meaning of why this was happening, and they had purpose around it. So they had a reason to get better. They had it, it wasn't just a hopeless case where there was no reason to live and they don't understand why it happened to them. They got into a helpless space. The meaning that you give the illness and having a purpose and a reason to recover can be the difference between whether you recover or not. And, we ignore this factors in so many of our patients. We're so focused sometimes on just the diet or probiotics or, a sleep pattern that we want them to do. And yet this essence of meaning, what's a person's raison d'etre? What's their purpose in life? It's a kind of it's almost like I call it the unquantified self, this part that you can't quantify. How do you quantify the meaning? I can quantify, your blood sugar levels. I can quantify whether you've got bad or gut bacteria, and I can address that, and I can measure it, and I can intervene. But what about this unquantifiable meaning? And this is where we get more into the art, and we get into the religion side of it, or it might be spirituality or faith. It's a fundamental part of recovery. And just as we need to understand the subjective state of our patient's history, we should also know where they are in their own process of right now, who they are, and are they going through a total ego breakdown because they can't be the person that they were before. And that's why I have a lot of friends and colleagues who have had major illnesses that cause them to be bedbound or housebound for 7 or 8 years or whatever, and all of them have gone on to do amazing things, gone on to be documentary filmmakers, have built huge clinics and helped thousands of people. So what they did with that is they refused to be, beaten down by what happened to them. They turned that experience into a way of having actually an amazing life and giving back to everybody. So, it's whatever works for you as a person, but also, having a belief, faith, and a purpose and a meaning and a framework that may come through religion for you, for that can be very powerful. And prayer as well. These are, prayer has been absolutely proven to be helpful in healing. And it's in, science studies as well. So it's another one of the most important factors that I wish that more practitioners were aware of. And that I would encourage, clients and patients, to actually explore what's happened to them, to acknowledge what they may be going through, the impact that it's had on them. Have a look at what stage of trauma they may be in because of the illness itself. And, what's your reason to get better? And dig in and start connecting into an inspiring, reason to recover. And that's also a good reason why you want to read inspiring books, watch inspiring movies, explore other people's success stories about how they recovered from a particular illness, so that you can absorb that as well, and it becomes part of your drive and reason for recovery as well.